As cases over the constitutionality of President Obama's health reform law worked their way through the federal appeals court system, the government side was argued in several instances by Neil Katyal, the former acting Solicitor General of the United States. Joining us now on the occasion of the Supreme Court upholding that law is Neil Katyal, who is now at Georgetown Law and in private practice at Hogan Lovells, which is the former firm of Chief Justice John Roberts. Mr. Katyal, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's nice to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Most court watchers with less experience than you were expecting that if the liberal side won today, it would be because Justice Kennedy swung to their side. That did not happen. It was Justice Roberts who swung instead. Why do you think that was important? And should more people have seen it coming?
Well, yeah, I do think more people should have seen it coming. I mean, I think during his confirmation hearings to be Chief Justice, John Roberts promised a notion of judicial restraint, of judicial humility, of really trying to see things as accurately and as apolitically as possible. And those of us who had worked for him, I think, saw that in him and took a lot of heat, frankly, from the left when we said good things about him. And lo and behold, I think that's what you have here. I mean, I don't want to say that, you could view this decision in lots of different ways, but the one really important thing about the decision is it's really an apolitical decision. I mean, the Chief Justice did what I always teach my law students to do, which is, pretend the parties are reversed and think like a lawyer and say, who should win this case regardless of who the party is, who's on what side of the V in the case caption. And that's what he did here. And I think it's a real model to be celebrated.
In terms of the political view of the court and the kind of heat that flies from left to right and right to left around decisions like this, the right is going nuts today, denouncing Justice Roberts as a traitor and worse. I just wonder if there is, you're speaking to me as a liberal, speaking to an audience that hears my liberal point of view over the course of this hour, if you have a response that you think could be constructive in looking at that political pillorying that he is receiving today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in this town, particularly in D.C., but across the country, everyone thinks about issues like there are the Republican justices or the Democratic justices. And I think what the decision today says, and Chief Justice Roberts most poignantly says, no, there are 9 justices, and we approach these things as apolitically as possible. And you saw not just the chief crossing party lines, so-called party lines. You saw Justices Kagan and Breyer also doing so today and voting to strike down a piece of the Affordable Care Act is unconstitutional. And so I think ultimately what this decision is, it's a resounding victory for the rule of law, of the idea that, let's all take a step back and view this stuff a little more apolitically and as just matters of straight-up law. And, if the Republicans are right that the Affordable Care Act is bad law, repeal it. But don't, run to the courts every time you don't like something and try and get it struck down as unconstitutional.
In terms of that element of the case in which the more liberal justices crossed over purported party lines on that Commerce Clause piece, the Commerce Clause is, of course, the constitutional means by which Congress makes law for tons of stuff, everything from actual interstate commerce to civil rights and a lot of things in between. I just spoke with Dahlia Lithwick about this, but I'm wondering what your view is on that part of today's decision. Did we just quietly get a really big change in what the government is allowed to do under the auspices of the Commerce Clause?
Right. No, I think that's exactly right. And I probably do. I normally agree tremendously with Dahlia, but on this one, I actually think that there is a bit of cause for concern here. I do think there's language both in the Commerce Clause parts of the whole decision as well as the spending clause parts of the decision that really do mark possibly a difference between federal-state powers and a tightening of the ability of the federal government to act in the way it has before. And so there is something, frankly, for those conservatives who believe in limited government to really celebrate here. There's the whole decision by Chief Justice Roberts is really based on a very limited notion of federal government power. And so time will tell what this decision means. But there is language in there that could blossom and become fairly radical constitutional theory in eliminating a lot of different acts of Congress.
I think that's a really, really important point. I do think it's going to become more clear over time, but it's something that we should start to realize is happening today in assessing the importance of this. Neil Katyal, former acting U.S. Solicitor General, thank you for your time tonight, and congratulations on your part in the winning side of this case. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks.
All right, we have a really great Best New Thing in the World today, which is coming up at the end of the show. Stay tuned.